Hello and welcome to CSSC Encounters. My name is Jan Servaas and my guest today is Yu-Hong Lee. Yu-Hong is currently working at CityU, the Department of Media and Communication, but before she was a journalist for CCTV and studied at Columbia University in New York. Yu-Hong is helping us out with student documentaries, introducing students to this kind of communication skills, but at the same time you also bring a lot of expertise and background to our department, and you assist students in producing interesting and also quality products as a result. You started off with a series which the viewers of our program will have been able to see, Our Father's Revolution, which focused on the Cultural Revolution, but you have continued the same kind of approach with a series which is now called Family Album. Can you give us a bit of an introduction?
Yes, a family album, it's like, because it started when we talk about the history of China, especially modern history of China. We were, all the individual story were buried by so-called national memories, which controlled by the country's, culture department. So
the Propaganda Institute.
Yeah. You can say that. But for individuals, we don't know, maybe it's more real than so-called national memories. So I think it's time, because a lot of people are getting, pass away, especially they witnessed the Cultural Revolution or more further earlier. So I think it's time to remind people to record those kind of history, and especially for young generation. Now my students, all of them are, were born after 1960s. Right. We call it 90后, right? So these students, they are also one child in their family, and they are not very close with their grandparents or even parents. They're very independent, but they are not. The family is not as close as before, and when you ask them, what's your grandparents' name, they have no idea, and
really?
Yeah, so they don't know their history as well. So I think it's time, for the young generation. They need to know, where am I from, right? So, what my root. So I think they want to know. And when I launched this project, and to my surprise, and the people, the young people, they have great interest to talk with their grandparents.
To find out their own history.
To find out, yeah. Yes. For example, one of my students, a girl, and she was born in Zhejiang province, and her grandma, she told me she usually spend only one day a year with her grandma for the Chinese, New Year Eve, right, to have dinner together. That's the only chance to.
Very important event,
yeah,
right?
Right. So she told me she actually looked down on her grandma, because, like the other side, her grandma was very mean and not, generous. Looks like, because. So this time, because of this project, he went back to the village, went to her grandma and spent 7 days with her grandma. And after finished, and she told me she changed her mind, because she know all the stories about her grandma. Her grandma spent, when she was young, she herself supported the whole family of 7 children. So she changed her mind and started to respect and understand, her grandma and the family.
So this project brought them closer together.
Yeah, brought them, get closer. This is one thing, get the family thing. And the other thing is, my other student, also from a rural area in China, and her grandpa, her father's side, the grandpa, was sort of, the local official during the Cultural Revolution. and he was sort of the person who said, how to say that, a crime, just many people were sent into the jail, but it's not true by some so-called, criminal. Yeah.
So falsely accused.
Yeah, it's not true. So this student went back to village, want to interview her grandpa, and from the beginning until the end, she interviewed some victims, and interviewed, get all the background information and stories. But she, from the beginning to the end, she just feel uneasy to interview her own grandpa. And she told me because she doesn't want to remind the sorrow things. I think her, her grandpa is suffering from what he did. But after this, after he filmed the documentary to tell the story, the very tragic story, how other people suffered because of her grandpa.
Right.
And then she told me, oh, I think I understand. Although my grandpa is keeping silent, keep quiet about what happened, what he did, but I think keeping quiet and silent is a sort of punishment for him.
Right.
Yeah. So I think these stories are very, powerful, and they can, although maybe they're not, don't want to hurt his grandpa, but she can further understand what, what her grandparents are suffering now.
Right. Yeah, I saw some of the episodes, and I was quite pleased, moved, interested in the way you approached, or your students approached, these things. Of course, there is sometimes an issue of politics. There are the events which happened, and that's often the starting point. But the project, they also bring out the more sensitive, the more personal elements to the story, and they are rather open-ended. They don't really judge or take a position. They give an overview, and as a result, the viewers are challenged or invited to come up with their own interpretation and assessment. Is that your approach?
Yes. It's very easy to say good or no. Yeah, but I think people are more complicated, and so I hope the students could open mind and to discover, what happened, and to understand what happened.
Right.
Not only to hate, but to understand. I think understanding is most important than anything else. Yeah.
Yes, and I think understanding beyond the local culture,
Yes.
sometimes it seems as if it's a universal issue which you bring about. Of course, it's set in a Chinese context, but there are elements which are very recognizable also for Westerners or people from other cultures.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a plus.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think the students, they filmed the different stories, and I think the whole process, of the filming documentary, it's, I said it's the magic of documentaries, to know unknowns, to discover what they didn't know before.
Right.
And so I think it's a good way for the young generation.
Yeah, and documentaries, on the one hand, of course, they try to stick to historic events or facts, but at the same time, they leave some room for interpretation.
Yes.
Is that kind of tradition becoming popular in China?
Yeah, I think more and more young people have interest in documentary production, although it will not help them to earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
But definitely they have interest. For example, my students, we have already started this project for, we finished 17 short films, and about 20 students joined this project. And actually, the 20 students, about 12 of them are doing the documentary career now. So I think this project really changed their career path.
So they went back
Yeah,
home to
they
the
already
mainland?
graduated, and
Right.
they went to the documentary industry already, and they worked for the TV channels or some private company to film documentary.
Oh, that's
I'll
very
do something
rewarding.
related.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm very proud of them.
Right.
Yes.
So let's hope that there are more documentaries and films being produced then, not only here at CityU, but also in the mainland in China.
Yeah.
Now I know that we are also trying to archive and keep a clearinghouse for all these issues. Not only for what we produce ourselves, but historical documents which have been supplied to us by donors and etc. So here at CityU we now start something like a digital archive on the history of and the culture of China. And you are once again being invited to be the coordinator of this project.
Yeah.
So what is that going to be about?
Yes, I think maybe it's very unique. In Hong Kong, maybe also not too many universities has this kind of center, archive, visual archive center. So I think we are not only collecting all those historical visual archives, but also we will do some research related to see because. Visual world is very different from the writing, the printing world. So it's more direct, and we can do a lot of research, according to maybe even their dressing, or their, some face feeling, a lot of those kind of things. So we maybe continue to collect more, because as Professor Savaz also gave us a lot of information from the US and Europe. You can find a lot of Chinese history, visual materials, right? So all these things maybe we can put together and do research, and we can also do by the students to produce more and to do some oral history, like oral history,
right,
to just put together and make the history of China more, rich, than loads of printing ones.
Right. So not only oral history, but also the history of visual documentary filmmaking,
yes,
and archiving.
Yes.
But let's invite the viewers now to watch some of the results, the works which you coordinated on the family album.
Okay. See?
Thank you for your efforts and for your involvement in this, and thank you for your interest.